What made Duke wrestling appealing to you?
Well, it was funny. I was at Purdue. Great coach Scott Hinkle. When I was at Purdue, I was looking to make the step to be a head coach, but there was things that I wasn't doing as an assistant at the time. So, I mean, I interviewed for the job at Purdue, and I was like, hey, I'm eventually I'd like to be a head coach. And he's like, all right. Hinkle was like, all right, I'm gonna give you the opportunity from doing the budgets to fundraising to doing all those kind of stuff. And he did that. I mean, I'd go to meetings where they're supposed to be the head coach. I'd fill in for him and do that kind of stuff. I remember going down to an alumni event with like 300 alumni and talking about raising money for the program. So I knew that it was time to look for an opportunity to grow. And, I prayed about coming back here. And it just had happened that Duke had its first funded assistant coaching position. So I knew Claire Anderson from Oklahoma State. And, I talked to Claire a couple of times and, came down to the NU and met Dr. White. And at the time, John Jackson was the associate AD. And I met him and we just hit it off. And then I remember leaving Dr. White's office and he called me back and he was like, hey, sit down for a second. And John Jackson had left and he goes, look, I'm not only recruiting an assistant, I'm recruiting the next head coach here too. And, we'll see what happens, but, when Coach Anderson decides to leave, I think it would be a great opportunity for you to step up and to be a head coach. And that's the first time in an interview I've ever heard something like that before. So I was like, okay, so I remember we had, those first 2 years, it was just trying to get this program back. And, we went to nationals and we had one guy qualify. So we got a call to come back to Durham. And when I did, Coach Anderson had decided, he said, look, I'm going to retire. And, we'll see what happens. And so he had a meeting at 1 o'clock and I had a 2 o'clock meeting. And I didn't know what was happening. I called a buddy and said, hey, I don't know what's going on. And they said, hey, we'd like to offer you the interim head coaching job. And, I was blown away. I called my wife and, I was like, hey, I think this could be a dream come true, And I remember calling a couple of coaches and they were like, hey, you sure you want to do that, man, Duke? And, that's a tough program. I mean, they're not. And I was like, to me, it was just like, it's a great opportunity. And I just didn't understand why we couldn't be good. I couldn't understand that. So while people were telling me that, I was just like, man, this is a great time to be a Division I coach at a Division I program, with a great reputation. Man, well, let's take this thing and run with it. And so, I remember from first year from being last to, jumping up in the top 40 and then in the top 30 and then top 25. So yeah, it's been to me the type of student athletes we have here at Duke. I get along with our guys outside of wrestling. I mean we fish, we do things outside of wrestling, and I enjoy that company. And I don't think sometimes you get to places where that's not, you're in the room and that's it. So we do things outside the room, and I enjoy it, and it's a blessed situation. So obviously you look at the landscape, you can't be choosy, and that's what I was not going to do. I was not going to say, well, let's just wait for the next, because even back then I think Coach Adams, it was him, and I think it was coach at Army at the time, and I was like, I'm not gonna wait. I mean, while this opportunity's here, because it may not come again. So I knew right then and that, and just everything kind of just fell into place too. So I just knew that it was an opportunity I wanted to take.
So when you're in those early days and you got one qualifier and people are telling you the deck is stacked against you, what do you think you need to do to break through?
What I tried to look at was academics and that stuff aside. I tried to look at like what do our guys, what are we not doing that we need to be doing, and then what type of athlete am I recruiting here? So I started recruiting guys that didn't get it done, and that just the first thing out of their mouth was like, I want to prove somebody wrong because people just didn't take a chance on me, and I want to show the world different. And I remember sitting with when Connor Hartman, he was kind of like the catalyst of change. And I remember on the recruiting trip with him, and we're sitting there, and the kid was super quiet, and it was just a hard recruiting process with him because he wasn't quite, but he was taking in everything. So we had our final meal. I was taking him to the airport, and we're sitting there eating, and he's like, all of the stuff you promised about the guys no drinking and all that stuff, can you deliver that? And I said, yeah, I can deliver that. And he's like, you're just the assistant right now. Can you do? I said, yeah, Connor, I promise you, I'll do that. And so he's like, okay. He kept eating. I'm walking him to the gate. He's like, all right, I'm gonna come to Duke. And he ended up coming here, and then, like I said, it was just like, because people had forgot about Conrad. People had forgot, okay, that was like a 1 in a million guy gave, so no one really knew about that at the time. So we had to have somebody that was right now that could do it. And Connor, came in, and then all of a sudden, after Connor, then it's like, oh, Duke, they don't have anybody. Then Casper, then it's like, oh, Duke doesn't have anybody. Then it was the Fine Silvers, and you went from like, oh, we have one guy going to nationals, and that was like everybody was excited about that. And then, to like, are you kidding me? One guy, I'm like, I could just send out somebody else. I don't. What am I out here for? You got 3 coaches, 4 coaches. You got a trainer and one guy. I was like, that's just crazy to me. And so I just refuse to believe that we could not be successful here with the environment and what Duke has to offer. The weather, all the things that North Carolina has to offer. I just refuse to believe that I cannot have All-Americans, national champions, qualify multiple guys to the national tournament from where I come from. And that's just the one thing about it. Like I said, I talk about Coach Roderick all the time. I mean, he was like as hard as a rock, I mean, in his philosophies, and I would talk to him on a lot of occasions. I would just go and talk with him, and I mean, he was no nonsense. And he's like, well, you got 2 arms and 2 legs. Why can't you get it done? And it was like, for him, it was like he just couldn't understand why you couldn't get it done, why you couldn't win. And that's what, I'm like, well, I'm going to Duke. I'm going to recruit athletes that have 2 arms and legs and whatever, and they're capable. Why can't we win if you're going to go out there? So for me, I just couldn't understand why you couldn't get it done, and just bring that work ethic to practice every day and get it done. And that's what we try to do.